DJI has been added to the U.S. government blacklist. However, it's not as bad as we thought. That's kind of
wait. Aren't they already on the U.S. government blacklist?
So they're on the entity list, which is sort of a blacklist. Yeah, so they're on the list that says, like, hey, if you do stuff in the U.S., you can't send it to DJI. If you do technology or products, you can't send it to DJI. That's how it's been before, up to this point. They're on the entity list.
Or the entity list.
Yeah, so now they've been added to what they're calling the Chinese Military Industrial Complex Companies Blacklist.
Oh.
And so that list says that, and there's already like 60 companies on this list, but basically that list says like nobody in the US is allowed to make any investment in a company on this list. So for most people, that's not a concern. That's not really a thing because DJI doesn't take money from US people or companies, but they are at least on this list.
I'm confused, and I apologize, Blunty, if you don't, because you're hardly a financial expert. Yeah. But does that mean that if I wanted to buy a share of DJI, DJI is a publicly traded company, right?
It is not. That's the problem here. That's my confusion here.
I see. I was like, surely they're not.
And DJI doesn't have any way to really buy into them. And I don't know how many U.S. companies are putting money into DJI in any way. So this may be just like a political thing. I'm not exactly sure. So I expected more of a Huawei thing, where in the Huawei case, there was a government. I think there was an executive order by Trump back when Trump was the president, and he was the one who decided that, in addition to the entity list, Huawei will not be allowed to be used by any telecommunications providers.
Right,
and that's what basically banned Huawei from the country as a device because you can't use it.
Yeah. So they're saying that you can't invest in DJI, but individuals like us couldn't invest in DJI anyway. Correct. Theoretically, a company like a Google or an IBM or I don't know. Could invest in DJI, at the corporate level, they could partner together, and that's now prohibited, but that doesn't really affect us. And it doesn't in any way affect the ability to import DJI products by individual consumers.
Yes.
And worth pointing out that for people in FPV, none of these products are made by DJI anyway. They're made by Caddx and Runcam. Yeah. So
part of the question here is, will the outlook of this, the way it looks to people by ending up on this list, change the way that people will use DJI in general, stock DJI, look at DJI as a company? Or will it be just like it is now, and there won't be any real change to anyone's perception of DJI? So maybe that will be, long to be seen, but really, I don't think much change for most people, this being.
So far. I mean, I guess the concern would be that there's a lot of sort of saber rattling and, and that, steps are taken that may eventually end with a prohibition on importing DJI technology. But so far, we're not there yet. Yeah. Anyway, Madstech in the chat. Good to see you, Madstech. Madstech says you could argue that the early buyers of the Mavic 3 were investors because they sure as hell weren't treated like customers. Ouch. Anyway. Right. Didn't DJI buy into Red Cat? No, not in any way. Long Dollar Bill asked that. DJI sponsored some Rotor Riot episodes.
Yeah.
The same way that, Asus sponsors a Linus Tech Tips episode about their laptop. DJI paid Rotor Riot to make episodes involving DJI products. That's not an investment. And they certainly... I don't know if DJI owns Red Cat stock in some way. It's a publicly traded company, but no. Quad Dog says no one's buying into Red Cat, lol. I'm sorry. Red Cat raised $60 million in a public offering. So a whole lot of people bought into Red Cat. Say what you will.
Yeah, they got, you want to say.
I feel like when that, that's not really the topic of the news, but when that happened, I was like, for all the ways that people in FPV love to hate, when you do an IPO and people give you $60 million, okay, I got to give you that one. Okay. If you raise $60 million, it's a lot of freaking money. Somebody believes in you. Anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Quad Doc says Red Cat shares are tanking. Yeah. Okay. Why are they still? Well, I don't know. Whatever.
They tank and they go back up. They tank. They go back up. They tank and they go back up.
Buy the dip. Buy the dip.
If you look at the history, the other thing I would say is that if you paid attention to anything we've talked about here, or they've talked about in their things, they have Teal Drones that's about to pump out a shit ton of drones because they've been manufacturing them for months now. And they're going to sell a dog shit ton of them, and the next revenue stream will be amazing. So
yeah, looks like it
for that.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not really the topic for the news, though.